You're the reason why I am my way. You're the reason why I rip my shirts, why I eat at the buffet. Butter, you got your very own kind of nice. We all live inside a butter world. Oh, butter, butter. Gonna eat it by the sticks tonight. Gonna eat out this world. Oh, butter. I'm about to take a bite, 'cause I want that salty cream. What I dream about all night. Butter dreaming. I'm about to take a bite, 'cause I want that salty cream. What I dream about all.
All right, man. Welcome back to another episode of Buttercast. We are your hosts.
Welcome, everyone.
My name is Anderson,
I'm Jay.
and we are Butterfueled. Our mission is to dispel away all the food myths that surround animal foods, advocate for animal-based foods, and help you become stronger and healthier. Guys, if you don't already, make sure you go follow us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. If you want to learn about an animal-based approach to fat loss and muscle building, go follow us on Instagram at Butterfueled Fitness. If you want to support the show, go check out our affiliates. Link in bio. You can find out all the information there. Buy our merch. We just dropped the Valentine's Day merch. I love you like I love eggs. You're my butter half, and you're the butter to my steak. Put it on a t-shirt so you can give it to your loved one. And then, of course, if you'd like 2-on-1 coaching, individualized, personalized coaching, we're talking meal plan and workout plan, and much more, much more. Industry-leading program to help you with your goals. Don't be afraid to reach out. DM us the word fueled. That being said, we have a great show planned for you today. Going forward, we'll be doing Monday night lives. No more Saturday night lives, because we're getting a new life on Saturdays. We're getting our life back on Saturdays, basically. But we're very busy individuals, and we've made the time to come back on Mondays. And then we're going to have podcast episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays with guests. If you haven't already, join our Discord. We hold Zoom meetings on Wednesday nights so we can go over the monthly challenge and also hang out. You know, we've had some great interactions in the past couple of weeks. We basically raw milk pilled someone for the first time. And we discuss all things fitness, all things veganism, all things whatever. Anything goes. It's not a politically correct space. So if you're sensitive, that's not the space for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, nutrition is pretty personal. A lot of people react very strong to it emotionally.
Yeah. Talking about people who react strongly emotionally, check out our previous episode number 7. Nose to tail is not carnivore. That's right. Agree, disagree? Hey, go give it a listen and let us know. If you disagree, we'll let you even come on the show. We can have a discussion.
We'll have a discussion, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. We challenge you. But hey, we have a great show planned for you today. We're going to be dispelling one of the biggest myths that still surrounds red meat. And that is, red meat gives you colon cancer. What's up with that?
Colorectal cancer.
Yeah, specifically colorectal cancer. Why? Why not something else? Well, you know, it also gives you heart attacks, right? Gives you diabetes. So I suppose red meat also destroys the world, kills the environment.
It's causing climate change. The cow.
Yeah.
It's the destroyer of worlds and the destroyer of human lives, apparently.
How dreadful. But today we'll just focus on the colorectal cancer.
Colorectal cancer.
Yeah, also known as CRC. Colorectal cancer.
CRC.
Cancer and carnivore, CRC. All right. That being said, we'll review what the experts have to say, and then we'll tell you what these experts have to say about that. Because Yeah, because we are human experts, not academic experts. Although we're still pretty smart guys. We take the show very seriously. It's a very serious show, if you can't tell.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right.
All right. Yeah, we should cover Push Up January, right? This whole month of January, we've had our entire private member group in Discord doing push ups. 25 push ups a day. You log your push ups in our Discord group, type /add points 25 or whatever number of push ups at your username. And we also host Wednesday weekly check ins via Zoom. Sweet. And here's a quick catch up leaderboard for today, January 30th. Buffalo Tears with 3,000 push ups. That's roughly 100 push ups every day since we're in January 30. Coastal Carnivore just behind by 60-ish, 90-ish.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Astro Treble blasting through. Last time we checked, he was around 2,000.
Yeah. Shout out to our members. Shout out to the members. They're all getting stronger in our Discord. Why haven't you joined the Discord yet? Why aren't you getting stronger? What's your excuse?
Yes. Nadia, 1,700. Us, mediocres. But then, we have Don Joe with 1,500, Shannon 1,200. I've seen all these people. Big D, they're logging points. They're doing push-ups every day. I've seen them log it in. So really excited to see all this participation happening. Painted Girl, yes.
Yeah. Honorable mention, OG Shark Bait.
Honorable mention. He said he was going to start doing 300 push-ups
Yeah.
a day. That didn't seem to work out very nicely. And, February is coming up, so we will be announcing the next challenge very soon. Right now, the next month's challenge may be between pull-ups or sit-ups.
Yeah. I think we'll go with sit-ups.
We may go with sit-ups. All right, into the meat of the topic of tonight's topic.
Yeah. We consulted with one of the world's leading authorities on health. Do you know it?
Who?
Who? Who is it?
Who?
Yeah, that's right. It's the who. Who are you?
World Health Organization.
Yeah.
Right. So this comes straight from their website. It's a question they have on their website. Red meat was classified as group 2A, probably carcinogenic to humans. What does this mean exactly? Right. So this is the response that they have on their website. Should I show their website or should I show this?
Yeah, you can pull up the website.
Pull up the website.
Yeah, we can review this question and maybe like a couple more. So yeah, there you go.
So hang on. I need to kind of put this in a new window.
Guys, we reached out to the WHO just for the show, and they agreed to come on the show just to prove that red meat causes cancer. But that's where the discussion comes in. We're here to disagree with the WHO's assessment. So, Mr. Who, what do you have to say? This is straight from their website. World Health Organization, which, by the way, is a branch of the United Nations. That's why they have the same logo, right? So the health arm of the United Nations, if you will. Just like they have the World Bank and they have numerous other organizations that oversee. What exactly is their jurisdiction over the government? I don't know.
Who voted them?
Yeah, who voted for them?
Yeah, so
Who voted for? Who voted for?
The future is built by us.
Do you know who that is?
The future is built by us.
that sounds like WEF.
Yep. So there we go. Back to the question.
Back to the question. In the case of red meat, the classification is based on limited evidence. Right, right off the bat, they tell you it's limited evidence from epidemiological studies showing positive associations between eating red meat and developing colorectal cancer, as well as strong mechanistic evidence. Limited evidence means that a positive association has been observed between exposure to the agent and cancer, but that other explanations for the observation, technically termed chance, bias, or confounding, could not be ruled out.
There you go. See, guys, they're not lying to you. They're telling you straight up. But did you know that they said that? If you're watching, let us know where you're watching from and let us know. Did you know that the WHO says this? They're telling you to your face, limited evidence. What does that mean? By their own definition, they say it other explanations could not be ruled out. Other explanations such as chance, bias, or confounding. What do you think that means?
So basically, if there's bias, it's there. They couldn't rule it out, so it's there.
So if it's chance, if it was just luck that they found this association, it is there, right? They're telling you that's
Yeah.
enough to justify classifying it as a group 2A carcinogenic and recommending that you limit your intake for your health and safety. Fellas, of course. Of course. And we fully agree with the WHO. This is a pro WHO show.
WHO is good people.
Yes.
I
Seed
don't-
oil is good.
Who knows who they are, the who, but definitely good people.
Yeah. That's a good follow-up question. Processed meat
Processed
was
meat.
classified as a group 1 carcinogenic to humans. So not probably, this is carcinogenic. And what does this mean?
This category is used when there is sufficient evidence of carcinogenity in humans. In other words, there is convincing evidence that the agent causes cancer. The evaluation is usually based on epidemiological studies showing the development of cancer in exposed humans. In the case of processed meat, this classification is based on sufficient evidence from epidemiological studies that eating processed meat causes colorectal cancer.
Well, there you go. Sufficient evidence from epidemiology. They're telling you that's all they have.
So yeah, if you saw the post from yesterday, it also mentioned that there's a lot of problems with epidemiological studies because they're based out with the data that goes into these studies are from food frequency questionnaires. And if you look at a food frequency questionnaire, which we have covered here prior in a prior show, it's basically a long list of questions that says how many vegetables did you eat yesterday, last week, last month, in the past year, right? And you're supposed to come up with an estimate of once a day, once 3 times a day, once a week, twice a month, something like that, right? So, and then they aggregate all that data amongst like 10,000 participants, and then they draw correlations out of it. Truly, epidemiological studies, you can only draw correlations. You cannot draw causations because these are large population studies that require more in-depth studies in order to find causation. The best you're going to get out of the studies are correlations.
Yeah, which is not to say that they're entirely useless. I mean, they're useful insofar as it's a starting point, right? It's not the end all be all. It is not enough. It is by no means sufficient evidence to come up with dietary guidelines and just like spread that, worldwide. No,
Yeah.
no. It's a good starting point because then you can start narrowing down into, well, what is the actual story here, right? Why is it that these associations come up with red meat and cancer and other diseases? Could it be because of bias? One example of bias being healthy user bias. For decades, people have been told that eating red meat is bad because of saturated fats and cholesterol. So those who engage in healthier lifestyles, they likely, smoke less or don't smoke at all. They likely drink less. They exercise more, and they will eat more fruits and vegetables, in place of eating hyper processed foods, right? So then so on one hand, you have the healthy users who display all these behaviors, and then on the other hand, you're going to have those who consume meat, right? But what kind of meat are they eating? How are they eating the meat, right? If these people are the ones who drink and smoke, They're probably out there tailgating, having a good time, barbecuing, eating hot dogs. In a hot dog, you're eating, yes, it's processed meat, or it's processed beef meat. And I'm not even sure that's such a big issue. But you're having the hot dog with bread, and then you're having ketchup. Ketchup is just high fructose corn syrup. Say they're smoking cigarettes, maybe they're drinking beer or having a soda. You see what I'm saying? All of these things. What if all these behaviors go together? Yeah, they're eating meat, but they're having it with sugar and grains and alcohol and sodas, right? Unhealthy user bias.
Yeah, unhealthy user bias. Um,
So how do you rule that out from someone versus someone who's doing a carnivore diet? You can't. Someone who's doing a ketogenic diet, you can't. Red meat heavy keto diet, for example, you can't. Right? That's the limitations that we have with epidemiology.
yeah, yes. Uh, Processed meat was classified as carcinogenic to humans. Group 1, tobacco, smoking, and asbestos are also both classified as carcinogenic to humans. Group 1. Does it mean that the consumption of processed meat is as carcinogenic as tobacco, smoking, and asbestos? Here we go. So this is something that you would see the vegetarians and the vegans say, it's a class 1 carcinogen. They're referring to processed meat. So it causes cancer just like tobacco and smoking. But what does the WHO have to say about this? No, processed meat has been classified in the same category as causes of cancer, such as tobacco, smoking, and asbestos, IARC Group 1 carcinogenic to humans, but this does not mean that they are all equally dangerous. The IRC classifications describe the strength of scientific evidence about an agent being a cause of cancer rather than assessing the level of risk. So that's interesting. Strength of scientific evidence on the cause of cancer instead of risk, right? So they're trying to distinguish between two different things.
Yeah, so there's stronger evidence that processed meat and smoking gives you cancer, but not necessarily that smoking or processed meat
are equally dangerous
are equally dangerous, right?
Equally dangerous, yeah. Which is interesting. They're just trying to confuse us.
Or that they're even like more dangerous than group 2A carcinogens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's about the evidence, I suppose.
Yeah. Yes. And we will dive into this. Is there any other questions? I mean, so many questions. Should I stop eating meat?
Let's see what they say.
Eating meat has known health benefits. Many national health recommendations advise people to limit the intake of processed meat and red meat, which are linked to increases risk of death from heart disease, diabetes, and other illnesses.
There you go.
So just limit your meat intake, basically. But it has a lot of known health benefits.
Yeah, well, basically what they're telling you is eat more poultry and seafood.
Yeah.
Limit the red meat.
Yes. That's interesting.
Oh, check that one out. The last one. Should we eat only poultry and fish?
We're not evaluated. So, that's how that's some good stuff. They know poultry and fish are less nourishing than red meat, so this is what they recommend.
They're just not evaluated. So we don't know. Maybe they could, if they were evaluated, what if they actually had a higher correlation? Does that mean that they're riskier foods to have? Or is it all just hogwash? It's all hogwash. Yeah. It's not a very serious page. Come on. I'd have to put in more effort for like homework when I was in college.
Yep. All right. So here's switching. I should just do screen 2, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
All right.
All right. So then, where did the WHO come to the conclusion that red meat should be a group 2A carcinogen and then processed meat should be a group 1? Well, that's where the IARC report or the IARC comes in, right? This is where they evaluated, they assessed the observational and mechanistic limited evidence, so called limited by the WHO themselves. But luckily, we have the IARC report here to show you what did they actually say. And then again, IARC stands for International Agency for Research on Cancer. And there we go. We have the nice WHO logo again. All bow down to your leaders. Yeah.
The future is built by us.
Oh yeah.
By 2030, you will be the happiest you've ever been. There we go.
Yep,
So,
yep.
red meat refers to unprocessed mammalian muscle meat. Yeah, that's a no brainer. Look, they even tell you red meat contains proteins of high biological value and important micronutrients such as B vitamins, iron, both free iron and heme iron, and zinc. Terrific. So,
Good.
so they're telling you it's good. They're preface by telling you it's good.
High biological value, right? So it's useful for the human.
Yeah, but they don't put it in any context, right? So, moving on, carcinogens, including heterocyclic aromatic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, can be produced by cooking of meat, with greatest amounts generated at high temperatures by pan frying, grilling, or barbecuing. Meat processing, such as curing and smoking, can result in formation of carcinogenic chemicals, including N-nitroso compounds and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. There you go. Continuing on, it says, an IARC monographs working group reviewed epidemiological evidence, animal bioassays, and mechanistic and other relevant data to reach conclusions as to the carcinogenic hazard to humans of the consumption of red meat and processed meat. So there you go. Again, we're going back to just what we mentioned before, just what the WHO was telling you. The concern is the heterocyclic aromatic amines and the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that are formed when they're cooked. That's what they're attributing the risk for cancer, right? As well as the formation of N-nitroso compounds, right? So that's why they mentioned that the curing of the meats can lead to the formation of the N-nitroso compounds because of the nitrites and the nitrates. But all of that is obviously easily shown to be an inversion of the truth once you actually look into it. But once again, just highlighting, they're telling you themselves epidemiological evidence, animal bioassays, right? So we'll actually show you the rodent studies and then mechanistic data, right? So they have correlation, and then they have these rodent studies, and then they tie it together, and that's how they extrapolate, making such preposterous claims. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Epidemiological studies. Now that's a mouthful. Epidemiological.
Yeah, say it.
Epidemiological.
Say it enough times so it stops making sense.
It stops losing its meaning.
Epidemiological.
Yeah.
Imagine being an epidemiologist. What do? Work with pyramids?
Yeah. Pyramid schemes. So yeah, 800 epidemiological studies investigated the association of cancer for more than 15 types with consumption of red meat or processed meat, including large cohorts in many countries from several continents with diverse ethnicities and diets. Cool, man. Real cool.
Back to the slides. So there we have the problem with epidemiology. So we're going to systematically debunk these accusations. Correlation does not imply causation. And you can see the little comic there. Kids being a smart ass. And the problem with the problem with animal studies. Yeah. So that's a rodent, and then that's a mice. A mice, I don't know if they're the same. Is a mice a rodent? But imagine taking a rodent and feeding them some carcinogens, and then thinking you can equate that to a human. Look at that.
Wow.
Look at that. I mean, surely We all know someone that looks like that, but I don't think you can reason that what happens to this little thing uh, translates well to a human.
Poor thing.
Yeah. Wait. Go. Yeah. Go back to the website. Yeah. Go to the next tab.
All right.
Yeah. So we have Tina Teachels.
There you go. So yeah, so this is she's showing a food frequency questionnaire here. Bananas, never or less than once a month, once per month, time 2 to 3 per month, to every day, right? So these are the sort of food frequency questionnaires you have to fill out and then collect, and from that derive uh like whatever your conclusion.
Yeah. Crazy. I mean, dude, if they were asking how many eggs I've eaten, like the biggest option is like every day, 5 to 6 per week, or every day. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many eggs I ate the whole of last week.
True.
But
Or yeah,
would definitely be beyond. I mean, every day. Like, how do you differentiate someone having one egg in a day to someone who's eating like 21 eggs in a day?
yeah. And your serving size. You small, medium, large. What does that even mean? Well, my serving size for banana was small, medium, large. Yeah.
Yeah,
So garbage in, garbage out.
yeah. So poor epidemiology, and then on the second note, she was referring to uh, a quote by Dr. David M. Clerfeld, who was actually part of the IARC committee, and he was the one who was challenging them, saying like, shouldn't you disclose that you're vegetarian? And you spent like the last couple decades publishing literature against red meat. And they responded to him with, why? Why? Well, actually, we have an article that Dr. David M. Clerfeld wrote. We're going to show you. Again, he was involved in the committee itself, and he was troubled by the things he saw, right? Because they were not being completely honest, not completely honest. But you know, here we have a source from cancer.gov. So this is the National Institute of Cancer for the USA. So we covered the problem with epidemiology, right? It's predisposed to bias, and correlation does not imply causation, right? Now, what's the problem with these animal studies, right? Using the rodents. Again, we all know a human that looks like that mole rat, but still, you can't ascertain that what happens to the mole rat could happen to a human. So here we go, straight from the National Institute of Cancer. What evidence is there that HCAs and PAHs, PAS, in cooked meats may increase cancer risk? And those are your heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, okay?
Nailed it.
Yeah. So studies have shown that exposure to HCAs and PAHs can cause cancer in animal models. In many experiments, rodents fed a diet supplemented with HCAs developed tumors of the breast, colon, liver, skin, lung, prostate, and other organs. Rodents fed PAHs also developed cancers, including leukemia and tumors of the gastrointestinal tract and lungs. However, the doses of HCAs and PAHs used in these studies were very high, equivalent to thousands of times the doses that a person would consume in a normal diet. Guys, this is from cancer.gov. They're telling you themselves what the evidence is. See, they tell no lies, but you, the unsuspecting consumer, you will never go and check for yourself because you will read it from, I don't know, dailymail.co or like Newsweek. You'll have the CNN telling you about the study. But look at this. They were supplemented with the carcinogen themselves. They weren't even like fed cooked meat. Supplemented with the carcinogen. That means that the carcinogen must have been like synthesized, refined, and isolated into some powdered compound that was then sprinkled over their food in thousands times the dose that a person would consume in a normal diet. So you can see how it starts to get ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And there you go. Following on from that, population studies have not established a definitive link between HCA and PAH exposure from cooked meats and cancer in humans. Not established a definitive link, okay? And what did the WHO tell you? They told you we have limited evidence of epidemiology, and then we have some, what do they call it? Mechanistic data from animal bioassays. Okay, this is it. This is it. This is addressing precisely the animal side of that thing.
Yeah. They could have just like high heat cooked whatever and then feed those to the rodents, and then that would have been a more honest test. But they didn't do that. Right? They instead just gave the compounds. They gave the compounds directly to the rat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very weak evidence. I mean, if you, the average person, sit down and read this, like you should be like, it's probably fine if I eat red meat. Like, who would ever come read this and come out worried unless you have no reading comprehension skills, right? Unless the big words scare you, but they shouldn't scare you. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Courtney says they won't mention the doses in the headlines.
There you go. There you go.
Exactly.
Shout out Courtney. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Yeah, it's crazy, And then this belief gets ingrained in so many people's minds that they will actually confront you and be like, well, won't you get cancer? How about the colon? Like, you shouldn't char your meat that much. Guys, we've been cooking our meat with fire for like thousands of years, millions of years. Come on. We've been eating meat for longer than we have had fire around for. But still, we've been cooking the meat for a very long time. But yeah, this is cancer.gov. Again, we're not making this up. You can go look this up yourself. We challenge you to do the research for yourself.
Yes, sir. All right. Next slide.
Yeah. So, red meat is associated with longevity. And we have a study that shows that. And we have a meme here. Grandma meme. She ate a lot of meat. And now she's worried that the spam is stored in the computer. She doesn't get it.
Oh.
Yeah, take us to the huge study. There you go. Total meat intake is associated with life expectancy. A cross-sectional data analysis of 175 contemporary populations. Authors, you. W. That's right. It's a win for you.
Wenpeng you.
Wenpeng you. That's right. Wenpeng is Mandarin for win. You win from this study. We all take the win. All I see is a win.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So, what does it say? Association between a plant-based diet and extended lifespan is increasingly criticized since it may be based on the lack of representative data and insufficient removal of confounders such as lifestyles. We also examined the association between the meat intake and life expectancy at population level based on ecological data published by UN agencies.
Who?
After some excellent analysis
Yeah. Methods after some science.
after some science. Um, yeah, so yeah, to explore and compare the correlations between newborn life expectancy at 5 years of life, and intakes of meat and carbohydrate crops, respectively. Established risk factors to life expectancy, calorie intake, urbanization, obesity, and education levels were included as potential confounders.
Hmm.
And then worldwide, a bivariate correlation analysis revealed that meat intake is positively correlated with life expectancies.
Oh, no surprise there.
There we go. This relationship remains significant when influences of caloric intake, urbanization, obesity, education, and carbohydrate crops were statistically controlled. A stepwise linear regression selected meat intake cannot not carbohydrate crops as one of the significant predictors of life expectancy. In contrast, carbohydrate crops showed weak and negative correlation with life expectancy. There we go. Have more meat, longer life expectancy, more carbohydrates, negative life expectancy.
Yeah, I mean, are we really surprised about this finding? Knowing what we know, are we surprised? Are we surprised that the animal rodent studies don't translate to 175 countries and territories across the world? No, of course not. Of course not. See the conclusion? If meat intake is not incorporated into nutrition science for predicting human life expectancy, results could prove inaccurate. And again, mind you, they took into consideration potential confounders such as caloric intake, urbanization, obesity, education, and carbohydrate crops. Okay. So when they say things like urbanization and education, they're factoring in like uh, income levels of these people, right? Because we know people who are higher earners are more likely to have higher education. They're also like more likely to be urbanized, right? So all of these things are taken into consideration. So that means across 175 countries, poor and rich, meat intake is associated with longevity. And this is just one study that we picked. It's a very big study. I mean, they looked at 175 countries. Okay, it's a very big study, but there's numerous multiple points of data you could find that show these associations. I mean, and it's kind of ridiculous that you even have to ask for evidence showing that meat is a good thing, because as far as I know, meat is the standard of things, and the burden of evidence to prove otherwise should be on those who are trying to shove the plant-based agenda, which is an innovation, a technological industrial innovation, mind you. And then again, we don't address it here, but you can find numerous multiple studies that show that vegetarian diets, lead to people being more frail. They're more likely to break their bones. They're more likely to suffer from osteoporosis, um, you know, neuromuscular disorders, et cetera, et cetera. They're more likely to be depressed. They're more likely to have every single possible issue that any human could ever possibly face. So I think the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
But this is the fight we have to fight, guys. It's the fight for common sense. We live in a crazy world. Yeah. So a little bit about the doctor that we were mentioning, the one who was in the participating member of the IARC, who was also on the podcast with Brian Sanders. I haven't listened to the episode myself, but I trust that Brian Sanders did a good job. Yeah. Anyways, we have his letter lined up. What is the role of meat in a healthy diet? He goes on to list the benefits. I think the second bullet point is the more salient one.
Yeah. Despite claims by the World Health Organization, WHO, that eating processed meat causes colon cancer and red meat probably causes cancer, the observational data used to support the claims are weak, confounded by multiple unmeasured factors, and not supported by other types of research needed for such a conclusion. Although the intervention studies are designed to test the validity of associations found in observational studies, 2 interventions of low-fat, low-meat diets in volunteers that failed to find a benefit on cancer were not considered in the WHO decision.
Yeah, so remember how they said they looked at 800 studies, but they actually just looked at like 23?
Yeah.
That's what Dr. Klerfeld here is addressing. Again, he was part of the committee. He was part of the committee. He asked them, shouldn't you disclose you're a vegetarian? And they said, why?
It's crazy.
There you want to read the
The
third bullet point?
Third bullet point. It is likely that the association of red meat consumption with colon cancer is explained either by an inability of epidemiology to detect such a small risk or by combinations of other factors such as greater overweight, less exercise, lower vegetable or dietary intake, and perhaps other habits that differentiate those who eat the most meat from those who eat the least. So, yeah, there could be so many other factors that could potentially explain this.
Yeah, no surprise.
Yeah.
Again, limitations of epidemiology.
Yes, sir. Anything else that we should address here?
No, continue.
All right. CRC in vegetarians.
Yeah, so we actually have a study that shows that the incidence of colorectal cancer was higher in vegetarians than meat eaters. Have you ever heard that?
Oh,
Yeah, from the EPIC Oxford study. EPIC, guys.
cancer incidence in vegetarians results from the European prospective investigation into cancer and nutrition. Few prospective studies have examined cancer incidence amongst vegetarians. We report cancer incidence among vegetarians and non-vegetarians in the European prospective investigation into cancer and nutrition, Oxford. The study was 63,000 men and women recruited through the UK in the 90s. Cancer incidence was followed through our nationwide cancer registries. All right. So, where's the good part? 84%. Standardized incidence ratios for colorectal cancer were 84%. 95% within the confidence interval, 73%, and 95%. Among vegetarians, 102%. Among vegetarians, yeah. And 102% among vegetarians. In comparison, vegetarians with meat eaters and after adjustment for age, sex, and smoking, the incidence ratio for malignant neoplasms was 0.89. The incidence rate ratio for colorectal cancer in vegetarians was compared with meat eaters was 1.39.
There we go. Read that again.
The incidence rate ratio for colorectal cancer in vegetarians compared with meat eaters was 1.39.
Yeah, so basically 1.4, let's say. Vegetarians compared to meat eaters were 1.4 times more likely to develop colorectal cancer. According to this study that looked at 63.5 thousand men and women in the UK since the 90s.
Yeah.
You ever heard anything like that? You know, all the studies show that all the cancer happens to the meat eaters, right? So I think it's very valuable. I mean, I don't think it's fair to say that, this is an end all be all result. But when you have a result that goes against the consensus, then it's worth looking into.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy, right? Because you would think the vegetarians, the healthier people, the veggie people would be basically unbeatable, undestroyable. But here they are with higher incidence ratio.
Yeah. And they adjusted for age, sex, and smoking. So there you have it. Next time a vegetarian comes and tells you about colon cancer and meat, you can show them this study. So what do we think might actually be going on here? What might actually cause colorectal cancer. It's worth looking into, right? Because if it's not meat, what could it be? Right? We need an explanation.
We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, proceed. You know, so there's actually some information, some studies on seed oils, meat, and colorectal cancer in animals, mind you, in animals. But we have 3 studies that show carcinogenesis for polyunsaturated fatty acids versus saturated fatty acids in rodents. Again, we all know someone that looks like a rodent.
Here we go. Dietary polyunsaturated fatty acids and heme iron induce oxidative stress biomarkers and a cancer promoting environment in the colon of rats.
There you go. It's the PUFA plus the heme iron that increase the oxidative stress. Now,
Yes.
the abstract is a mouthful, but at the start they say, there's end products of PUFA peroxidation, right? In the first sentence,
Mhm.
um, such as malondialdehyde, MDA, 4-hydroxynonenal, HNE, and isoprostanes, 8-iso PGF2 alpha.
Nice.
Yeah. So what they're referring to here is the MDA, HNE, and the 8-iso PGF2 alpha. These are byproducts of polyunsaturated PUFA cooking. Okay, and they are oxidative stress biomarkers. Yeah. So in the study, that's what they found. Rats given a heme iron rich diet without PUFA were used as controls. So see, so the standard that they compared against were rats that were not fed PUFA and the heme iron.
Yeah.
hmm Yeah, again, animal study, but what we want to highlight here is the PUFA versus the non-PUFA, which would be the saturated fat. I mean, they don't explicitly mention it, at least not in the abstract, but there you go. This is just 1 out of 3. They look into the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. If you want to pull up the next study.
Beef and blood sausage promote the formation of azoxymethane induced mucin depleted foci and aberrant crypt foci in rat colons.
What did you just call me? Yeah. So this one has a weird title, but somewhere here in the abstract, they mention something about the fatty acids. Let me see. Can't read. Go further down.
All right, that's the mouse. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, they mentioned only diets with heme promoted the formation of MDF, but all meat diets promoted ACF formation. And they're talking about the carcinogen, carcinogenic biomarkers here.
Okay.
Yeah, what are they saying here? Wait, yeah, it's a mouthful. The number of ACF. Okay, MDF promotion was correlated with high fecal water lipoperoxides and cytotoxicity. So lipoperoxides, the result of the polyunsaturated fatty acids. Wait, scroll up a little bit. No heme control diet.
Yeah, so they're comparing azoxymethane and low calcium. What is azoxymethane?
Yeah, actually, I don't know. Why were they looking at that? Yeah, you're just saying they were fed a low calcium diet. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of weird study. Maybe we should just move on to the next one. Yeah, so meat and cancer, hemoglobin and hemin in a low calcium diet promote colorectal carcinogenesis at the aberrant crypt stage in rats. Okay, so yeah, so I think this one is the actual one that mentions uh, about the fatty acids used. So high intake of red meat, but not white meat, is associated with increased risk of colon cancer. But red meat does not promote cancer in rodents, is what they're saying. Hemin added to low calcium diets increases colonic proliferation, and hemoglobin added to high fat diets increases the colon tumor incidence in rats. An effect possibly due to peroxyl radicals. Okay, so what they're saying is high fat diets increase the colon tumor incidence in rats because of the peroxyl radicals. So the peroxyl radicals being the byproducts that you get from the PUFAs, from the PUFAs. But then at the end of the abstract, they say calcium, olive oil, and antioxidants each inhibited the hemin-induced ACF promotion. Okay, so the last sentence, diets high in calcium or in oxidation-resistant fats may prevent the possible cancer-promoting effect of red meat. Okay, yeah, so that's the important part. Diets high in calcium or in oxidation-resistant fats. What do you suppose an oxidation-resistant fat may be? Well, a fat that is not high in PUFA. Okay, yeah. So this one makes the point more salient. You know, they weren't directly comparing PUFA versus non-PUFA like in the first study, but essentially that's the conclusion they came to. Oxidation-resistant fats prevent possible cancer-promoting effect of the red meat. Okay, so putting this paper, the first one and the third one together, you can see there's some data for cancer being promoted when red meat is mixed with oxidation-prone fats, which are your PUFAs. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's these are very high-level studies with the rodents.
So yeah, oxidation resistant. Those are monounsaturated and obviously saturated fats.
Yeah. So again, these are animal studies, and they're kind of weird studies, but you as the consumer should look at that and be like, well, the PUFAs and their byproducts increased cancer in the rats when they were mixed with the red meat. So red meat plus PUFA gave cancer to the rats. And what were the controls used for these? In this the third study was olive oil. In the first one, they don't really mention it, but it was not a PUFA oil. So there you go.
Yeah. Fiber causes bloating.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a movement that likes to normalize bloating, but it's very crazy because when you're bloated, that is when your gut is inflamed, that's kind of your body giving you a red flag, right? It's a sign that something's not working properly. Like if you had heart inflammation, that would not be a good thing. If you had lung inflammation, that would not be a good thing. So why would anyone ever tell you that gut inflammation is normal? Surely it wouldn't be those body positive vegan influencers on TikTok and Instagram telling you that, oh, we all get bloated. I started the day like this, all skinny, and then by the end of the day, I'm bloated, and that's normal. Well, no, maybe it's because we were shoving your oats down your pie hole, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You're basically having dessert for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you got bloated. Your gut is inflamed, right? It's no coincidence. Carnivore dieters constantly report that they were curing their IBS and digestive issues. As we know, fiber causes bloating, right? Why is this? It's because of the FODMAPs. If you've never heard of FODMAPs stand for fermentable oligosaccharides. Yeah, go to the next one. Oh yeah, that's okay. Fermentable
Well, yeah. It's
yeah,
here.
fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. Okay, so these are all just like different names for carbs. Okay, so you have oligosaccharides, you have fructans, galactans, disaccharides like lactose. Yes, sorry, we all love raw milk, but some people will be upset by the dairy. Monosaccharides like fructose, and then polyols like sugar alcohols. Yeah, now you can go back to the thing. Scroll up. So they have a list of high mod FODMAP foods. Okay, so there you go. What are FODMAPs? So yeah, they tell you fructose, simple sugar, lactose, carbohydrate found in dairy products, fructans found in many foods like grains, wheat, spelt, rye, and barley, galactans found in legumes, and polyols like xylitol, sorbitol, maltitol, and mannitol. And then I think somewhere they have a list of actually a next tab. The next tab has the high FODMAP foods, give you an idea of foods that are high in FODMAPs. These are fibrous foods that tend to upset people with their digestive issues. So, number one, wheat. So, obviously, grains are going to be the worst of the worst, right?
Wheat.
Yeah, that includes oats, guys. Oats, right?
It's here.
Vegan influencers. I'm looking at you.
Garlic.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't imagine garlic would be problematic, but there you go. There you have it.
Yeah.
It's high in fructans.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're having a lot of garlic, a lot of gases will be produced.
That's true. Been there, done that. Onions. Huh. I would not imagine that either.
Yeah.
Fruit.
Just fruit in general.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, the sugary fruit is specifically, they
Correct.
contain fructose. So high FODMAP fruits.
Yeah. Apples, apricots, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, mangoes, peaches, plums.
Yep. So, if you have digestive issues, avoid all of those because they're not helping you.
Yep. Vegetables. Just vegetables.
Yeah. So there you go. High FODMAP vegetables.
Asparagus, beets, Brussels sprouts, butternut squash, cauliflower, bunch of stuff.
Mushrooms, red bell peppers, snow peas.
Yeah. Legumes and pulses.
Yeah. Those are going to be pretty bad.
Yeah. Almonds, baked beans, cashews,
Chickpeas.
fava beans, kiwi
Wow.
beans,
Basically all the beans.
all the beans.
Yeah. And
Uh,
last but not least,
Sweeteners. Agave nectar, high fructose corn syrup, honey, dun dun dun, malt extract, molasses, and polyols, sorbitol, mannitol, xylitol, and isomalt.
dude, that moment when you realize the Paul Saladino diet is a high FODMAP diet.
Oh, yes.
One of the benefits of doing the carnivore diet is that your IBS and your bloating will all improve because you're eliminating the FODMAPs. An animal-based diet in Saladino's version is not a low FODMAP diet. It seems
Yeah.
like actually it might mess you up if you have digestive issues. It's very far from a carnivore diet. If you'd like
Well-
to hear more, yeah, we discussed about it in our last episode. Carnivore
Yeah.
diet is not nose to tail.
Exactly.
All right. Oh, yeah. And other common talking points. So yeah, there we go. We covered does it cause colorectal cancer, right? Epidemiology and animal studies, animals that were fed 1,000 times the doses that humans see. And we discussed the problems with epidemiology. We even had expert testimony from Dr. Klurfeld saying, who was a member of the IRC committee, saying, these guys, they were vegetarians, on a mission against red meat. And he went ahead and wrote an article saying that the WHO was making all these unfounded accusations, right? So there you have it. But just to briefly touch on these points, other common talking points against meat and saying that meat causes cancer. One is that of cured meats, having nitrates and nitrites. So things like sodium nitrate or sodium nitrite, found in things like bacon, or like your cured hams like prosciutto, salamis, and all those things. They're said to be problematic, but and these are versions of processed meat, of course. But you know what? Honestly, I don't accept any of that, because first of all, humans have been curing their meat for thousands, if not millions of years. We've been using sodium nitrate salts to even preserve bodies. If you go and read about what they use to preserve mummies, they would use sodium nitrate salts. But then, the Romans and the Greeks have been curing hams and meats for a long time using sodium nitrate salts, salts that they would call saltpeter. If you'd like to look that up and learn more about it. And then the second point is, if you're actually worried about nitrates and nitrites, then you might be surprised to find that green vegetables are actually multiples higher in nitrates and nitrites. Again, go see for yourself. They're just significantly higher. Things like greens. Dark leafy greens. But last but not least, nitrates and nitrites are not necessarily a bad thing in the body. They produce nitric oxide, which are essential in like helping your blood vessels relax and promoting blood flow, right? So a lot of people like to, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people like to drink beetroot juice for the nitric oxide. And then there's TMAO. So a lot of people will tell you, oh, meat is high in TMAO and TMAO causes cancer. But guess what's multiples higher in TMAO? Seafood. And they constantly tell you that seafood is a healthier meat than red meat, right? So make that make sense. Again, all of these points, all of these narratives, all of these talking points against red meat, against bacon, against all the most nutrient dense foods of the world, they don't stand a chance. They don't stand their own ground. And they just rely on you being uninformed and easily impressionable and unwilling to go fact check what you're being told. Okay? Don't fall for the lies. Don't fall for the lies.
Therefore, in summary, meat does not give cancer. There's weak evidence to push this narrative, including bias in the evidence. And some evidence shows other factors cause CRC. So, what do you suppose contributes to CRC more? Yeah.
There you go. We're just asking you a question.
Yeah. If it's not meat, what is it? What else has changed? What is new in the human diet? Meat has been around for longer.
Precisely. Don't fall for the lies.
Don't fall for the lies.
All right, and for the last section, Q&A. Q&A. So in case you didn't hear, important announcements. Moving forward, we'll be doing our Monday night live shows. No more Saturday night live shows. As always, doing a live on Instagram to answer your questions, and then going live here for our show. So check out our previous episode. Nose to Tail is not carnivore. Why is the carnivore community so fragmented? If you'd like to support the show, go like and share our content. Don't forget to subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. If you'd like to learn about an animal-based approach to fitness and weight loss, follow @Butterfield Fitness on Instagram. Buy our merch, Valentine's Day merch on our website. Link in bio. Support our affiliates. And join our Discord. All right.
Thank you, everyone. And have a happy Monday night.
Yeah. Peace.